Hi, this is David Spears, and today I'd like to spend a little bit of time giving you guys a demonstration on using 802.1x and certificates as a mechanism to authenticate users to a wireless network. And we'll be doing that today with the HP MSM controllers, wireless controllers, and wireless access points, and we'll be leveraging the Microsoft Active Directory platform. So before we get into the demonstration of certificates, let's talk a little bit about why we would use certificates as a means to authenticate folks. So here we've got an overview of how a lot of people authenticate people to their wireless networks. We've got a company device that connects up to an access point that's running 802.1x, and you're using EAP and MSChap as a mechanism to authenticate people, and you're authenticating them based on Microsoft AD credentials. So in this case, and I am leaving out a couple of arrows in here to simplify things a bit, but in this case, the company device is connecting up to the access point, presenting the AD credentials to the network, which is forwarding them through the network switch over to the MSM controller and up to the Microsoft AD server, which is then going through and providing a response, a challenge response back. And if everything goes well, the company device is on the internet and able to get access to the resources on the internet. And that's great. The challenge or the problem with this architecture is if that same person would bring in their BYOD device, many of the BYOD devices now support 802.1x, and as a result, they could easily type in their Microsoft AD credentials and gain access to the internet as well. And so many organizations, because these devices aren't managed by the IT organization and potentially theft of data documents, don't want these devices connected to their internet. So they're looking for a way to protect themselves or keep these devices on the wireless networks that they're supposed to be on. So solution that actually is fairly easy. So we've got the same environment, but what we've done now on the Microsoft Active Directory side is we've enabled the network policy and access services, or NPS services, which has the Radius server, Microsoft's Radius server built into it. We've also enabled a certificate authority on the Active Directory environment and got that configured. And then what we've done is we've enabled the certificate auto enrollment process. And this is done through the group policy manager and the group policies. So now that we have that infrastructure set up, the company device, when it goes through its authentication process, presents a certificate that it has already obtained previously through an auto enrollment process. So it presents that certificate to the access point in the controller through the process, and ultimately over to the Active Directory server or the Radius server running inside the Active Directory environment. And if that certificate is valid, then that company device is given access to the internet. Now, conversely, the BYOD device doesn't have a certificate on it, and in most cases, it's going to be difficult for that device to actually get a certificate. So it's not going to be able to present a certificate to the environment. So as a result, it's not going to be able to connect up to this wireless infrastructure, this particular wireless SSID. And so now you've got a way to manage which devices are connecting up to the environment. And this isn't that hard to set up, and what I'll show you here in a minute is getting the certificates on the device isn't that difficult. So let's jump into the Active Directory server that we've got, and we'll take a look at the server manager, and we'll see that we've got a couple of roles running on this particular server, but first we'll take a look at the NPS role, and as you can see, we've got a Radius client already configured. This is the MSM, the HP MSM controller. And this is pretty straightforward. You're setting up the IP address of the controller and then the Radius shared key that will be used for authentication. So we'll hop out of this and then we'll dive into the NPS configuration itself a little bit closer. And we've got one policy that we've created, it's TLS, and we're just using the NPS to authenticate the certificate access to the environment. So this is pretty straightforward. So taking a look at the the TLS configuration, we've got under the access condition, we've got this configured to support the Microsoft certificates that we're generating or creating inside the certificate authority role on the server. And then we can head in the connection request policies. This is the area where you define where the authentication is happening, and in this case, this is defining the conditions that require authentication to happen locally. So now we're going to head over to the group policy manager. We're not going to spend any time really talking about how we configure the group policies. What I wanted to do is just show you that what we've done for this case is set the default domain policy to allow the automatic certificate enrollment, which is what's allowing us to easily get the certificate downloaded to a machine that we've got configured management capability of. So now we're going to take a look at the certificate authority services, and what I'm showing you here is that as of yet we don't have the PC device actually identified. So we've got 29 devices with certificates, and what we'll see after we get to the client and we actually go through the enrollment process, we'll have another device here and we'll come back and take a look at that. So now we're going to head over to the wireless access controller, the HP MSM controller. And when we get into the utility, we can see on the left side under the network tree, we've got a series of virtual service communities. These are used to house the configuration for each wireless SSID. So we've got one of these created for the TLS configuration or the TLS SSID. And what we've done inside of this configuration is we've configured the authentication to actually happen locally, and this is the SSID that we're advertising. And as we scroll down, most of the stuff is pretty straightforward stuff. But under the authentication side, we've configured a radius server, and this is actually the NPS server that we've got configured on the Active Directory environment. So if we go over and we take a little bit closer look at that configuration, we see this is all the standard radius configuration on the left. But we've got on the right, we've got the secret key, which is the radius key that matches the key that's on the NPS configuration on the domain controller side. And then we've got the NAS ID, which is the ID that is presented to the NPS server. One other thing that we can also take a look at quickly is the VSC bindings. So this is the configuration that tells us where we actually want the users to be once they're successfully authenticated to the environment, what subnet we want them to be on. So now we can head over to the client PC, and this PC has not yet successfully gotten a certificate or authenticated to the TLS network yet. So we can take a look at the certificate store on this machine and see that there are no certificates here yet at this point. And we'll close this out, and then we'll take a look at the wireless configuration just so you can get an idea of what kind of configuration you need on the client side for the TLS wireless connection. But this is pretty straightforward. So under the security tab, we've got this configured to use 802.1x and WEP, and then we were also configured to use a smart card or other certificates. And then we are also here validating the certificates on the server. So now if we just give this a try and we try to connect to the TLS infrastructure without a certificate, we see that we pretty quickly get an error that tells us that we aren't able to connect. And this is because we don't have a certificate at all. So what we're going to do is we're going to connect to WLAN. This is a network that I've got set up, similar to just doing a direct connection to the network. This allows us to get access without the TLS requirement, and then we can authenticate to the domain. So because we have the group policy setting to automatically enroll, when the group policy update happens, and what we're doing here is we're going through enforcing that update, that will actually get us connected to, or get us an updated group policy, which will also install the cert force automatically. So we aren't needing to do anything, any copying or any special configuration. It's all getting done behind the scenes for us. So now if we head back over into the certificate store, we'll see now we've got a certificate here, and if we double click on this, we'll see that we have gotten a certificate, and this device name is Netbook. So we've gotten a certificate that is valid for a couple of years. That should allow us now to connect up to the TLS environment. So we'll disconnect from this network, and then what we'll do is we'll go ahead and we'll connect up to the certificate TLS enabled SSID. And we see that we get a successful connection. So now we actually were able to utilize the certificate that we got by being connected to the network with AD credentials and auto-enrolling into the environment. So let's head back to the certificate authority server, which is in our Active Directory environment. If you remember back when we looked at this earlier, we only had 29 certificates in here. So what we'll do is we'll just quickly kind of go through and refresh this, and what we'll see is through that process of just logging in, now we've got another certificate that we've gotten through the auto enrollment process. So it really is pretty straightforward and pretty easy to go ahead and get that certificate down on the device that we're going ahead and supporting. So now what we'll do is we'll head over and take a look at what happens when you've got a BYOD device and you try to connect up to the infrastructure. So we've got the iPad, and we'll head over to the wireless networks, and we can see that we've got the TLS network. And when we try to join it, since we don't have a certificate on, we get asked to type in the password, and then obviously this isn't going to work. So what we've done is we've successfully created an environment without too much work that requires a certificate, automatically loads the certificate onto a device that is successfully connected to a LAN or a private infrastructure, and we've really locked out the BYOD devices, or the personally brought in devices. So if we head back over to the MSM Controller and take a look at the logs, so we can kind of see what we saw while we were going through this process, we can scroll down and see. Looks like it's a little bit further back. So here we go. So if we take a look, we can see the authentication failures of the BYOD device that MAC addresses the iPad. So the iPad tried to connect, but ran into authentication failures, and then we see that it was able to reconnect back up to that WLAN connection that we've been using for this demonstration. So that's the end of the demonstration. What I wanted to do is give you guys some options and let you know it's not that hard to go through and configure certificates on the HP MSM infrastructure, and give you an idea on how you could solve a very common problem that we've got. This isn't the only way to solve it, this particular problem. So there's also the IMC management software solution that gives quite a bit more granular configuration capabilities with user access management and also fingerprinting to also help you with the BYOD deployments. So I hope you found this helpful, and thank you very much for watching.